Chapter 32-21. Well done. Xiangxing Fa looked at old maid Wang with admiration and immediately ordered the secluded palace's disciples to investigate. The secluded palace's disciples carefully walked into the city. Their gazes searched around the city vigilantly. One of the secluded palace's disciples noticed the two soldiers lying on the ground at the back door. They went up to check. They had indeed fainted. Hearing this news, Xiangxing Fa was finally relieved. He waved his hand and allowed the secluded palace's disciples to enter Valley Wind City. The entire Valley Wind City was empty and in ruins. Xiangxing Fa's vision was fixed on the city gate, on those soldiers who were still fighting hard. The corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. This time, everyone in Valley Wind City couldn't escape. They wanted to take this opportunity to destroy Valley Wind City. Completely occupy the South Continent. Bring all these commoners to the base. Xiangxing Fa pointed at two people and ordered, "The rest, follow me and kill our way up the city walls of Valley Wind City. Whoever can take down that old fogey's head will be heavily rewarded." The secluded palace's disciples waved the weapons in their hands. In case they were discovered by the soldiers in Valley Wind City, they didn't dare to make a sound. But from the strength of their waving weapons and the expression on their faces, it was enough to tell the joy in their hearts. A group of commoners followed the two secluded palace's disciples and left. The others followed Xiangxing Fa and quickly headed towards the direction of the city walls. The soldier with leg injury who rushed over from the inn to report finally reached the bottom of the city walls. That originally bandaged leg was oozing blood. The situation was urgent and the soldiers were working together to resist against the secluded palace. They didn't pay attention to the soldier with leg injury. Mo Yuing, who was left behind by Yi Qing Luo in Valley Wind City, noticed the soldier with leg injury. She jumped down from the city walls and her little hand grabbed the soldier's arm. Her flat eyes fixed on him. "Why did you come out? Your leg injury has split open." That flat voice, that strange empty gaze. The soldier with the leg injury was shocked. Mo Yuing stiffly frowned and released his hand, pulling a distance between them. "Go back." The soldier with the leg injury came back to his senses and hurriedly shook his head. Something has happened. Mo Yuing blinked a few times. Her pair of cute and adorable eyes said, "What's the matter? Let's talk after the fight." "No, it's not that." The soldier with the leg injury hurriedly recounted the scene he had seen with the people just now in a concise manner. Then, he hurriedly said, "I suspect, the citizens might want to open the back door of the city and let the people from the Palace of Darkness in. If that's the case, we're in a situation where we're attacked from both sides. It's very dangerous. That group of white-eyed wolves, they actually did this." Obviously, these words were said in anger, but when they came out of Mo Ying's mouth, they were actually words that did not have any fluctuations of emotion. Mo Ying frowned. "Go back to the inn first, leave the rest to us." After saying that, her small body suddenly jumped. In the blink of an eye, the little girl, who looked like a pink dumpling, was already standing beside the general. The soldier stared in the direction where the little girl had disappeared and stared blankly for a long time. Actually, that little girl didn't know how to express her thoughts with her facial expressions. No matter how one looked at her, she was a very cute, very adorable young lady. Mo Yuing repeated the words of the injured soldier to the great general. When the general heard that, his face sunk. He immediately changed tactics and ordered the soldiers to defend the back door. But Chapter 32-22. Surround all the soldiers on the city wall. Xiangxing Fa's command was heard from behind. One by one, the undead corpse puppets rushed to the front at an extremely fast speed and surrounded the city walls. Fortunately, the soldier with the leg injury reported in time. Great General's command was timely. The moment the undead puppets rushed forward, The generals and soldiers were all fully prepared. But they weren't hurt by the undead puppets. Xiangxing Fa sat on the tiger beast's back as he squinted his eyes with a victorious posture. "Old man, you still want to resist at this stage?" He sneered. "Pincer attack, even if you have the ability to transcend the heavens, you won't win this battle." The moment the great general saw Xiangxing Fa and the secluded palace's disciple appear, his face turned steely green. This meant that the soldier with the leg injury was right. That group of commoners whom they risked their lives to protect betrayed them. Betrayed the South Continent. For the secluded palace. For the bunch of secluded palace who destroyed their homeland, they opened the city's back door. His heart was filled with anger. Most of it was the guilt towards those brothers who had died for the commoners. If it was possible. If it was possible. He really didn't want to care about the armor that he was wearing, to serve the commoners. To kill those ingrates with his own hands. To comfort the souls of his brothers in heaven. Ha ha ha. Even the commoners are willing to rely on us, that shows how useless you are. They can't see any hope of survival from you. Old man, just surrender obediently. Xiangxing Fa looked at the great general's furious expression and that black as charcoal expression. He was feeling more and more delighted. Pfft. The great general spat fiercely as he stared solemnly at Xiangxing Fa. "Don't even think about it. Since you want this city to be stained with blood, then I shall fulfill your wish." Xiangxing Fa sneered as he waved his hand. "Pincer attack, attack." The great general's expression darkened as he swiftly ordered the soldiers to defend. This situation was really not friendly to the great general. Xiangxing Fa entered Valley Wind City. Their advantage instantly turned into a disadvantage. Under the pincer attack, even though they had the weapons which Yi Qing Luo left behind to fight against the undead puppets, that was already extremely taxing. Bright red blood stained the ground. It also dyed the armors of the soldiers red. The clothes of the imperial palace's disciples were dyed red. Gradually, the palace of gloomy darkness advantage increased. Xiangxing Fa was getting more and more smug. When little Mumu brings another batch of undead puppets, the South Tide continent will completely belong to Dark Nether Palace. And a bunch of undead puppets? When the great general heard this, his face turned ashen. If another batch of undead puppets came. Chapter 32-23. Suddenly, a pink figure flashed past in front of the great general. The little girl, who was dressed in pink, dashed towards the direction of the elephant saint technique at an extremely fast speed. "Miss Mo!" The great general's expression congealed as he hurriedly shouted. This Mo Yuing was the imperial madam's good sister. If anything happened to Miss Mo, how could the imperial madam let him off? Mo Yuing didn't seem to hear the great general's shout. In a blink of an eye, she appeared in front of Xiangxing Fa. Xiangxing Fa only felt a gust of chilly wind. He flipped over and jumped up from the tiger beast's back. Bam! A pink furry ball hit nothing but air. However, that remnant might shook the fluctuations in the air, spreading out layer by layer like ripples. Xiangxing Fa was stunned by this power. He frowned slightly as he stared at the little girl who was rushing over. This girl, who was she? Why, how could there be such a strong power? Yi Qing Luo, that wretched lass, why were there so many strange people around her? Dodged. Mo Ying's mechanical voice rang calmly. That voice was so stiff that there wasn't any emotion. Xiangxing Fa inexplicably felt his scalp go numb. Especially when he met the little girl's pair of empty beautiful eyes. The numbness on his scalp became more and more intense. Strange. It was too strange. Xiangxing Fa's intuition told him. He absolutely couldn't go against this little girl. This little girl was so strange that compared to Yi Qing Luo, she was even scarier. But he didn't want to fight with Mo Ying. But Mo Ying had obviously set her sights on him. Xiang Xingfei had no choice but to fight back. Kill. Take this chance to exterminate the dead corpse puppets. The great general understood Mo Ying's meaning and immediately ordered those 10 over soldiers who were holding weapons to exterminate the dead corpse puppets. Without Xiang Xingfei's command, those dead corpse puppets only knew how to follow the previous command. It was much easier for the soldiers to kill them. Both sides were entangled in battle again. Mo Ying's attacks were getting fiercer and fiercer. She stared at Xiang Xingfei indifferently. Qing Luo said to capture the leader first. Stop struggling, if you anger me, the consequences will be severe. Elephant Saint technique swiftly evaded Mo Ying's 2 furry dumplings attack as he unleashed his profound qi. Little girl, your ability is so strong, why are you willing to submit to Yi Qing Luo? If you are willing to join the palace of gloomy darkness, I guarantee that you will definitely shine. He carefully stared at Mo Ying as he tried to brainwash her. This little girl seemed to be inexperienced. If they could persuade him to surrender, then he killed it in one move. That would be easy. But unexpectedly, the little girl in front of him did not show any jealousy or any other expression as he had expected. A pair of empty eyes, completely devoid of emotion. Don't shine, don't give off heat, just be clear. Her voice was still as stiff as ever. Her slender fingers hooked onto the fluffy ball of powder hanging in front of her chest and flew out. Xiang Xingfei's face darkened. Zhang Xian moved his palms and began his counterattack. Suddenly, his body seemed to be controlled by a strange force, unable to move. The next moment, his chest was heavily smashed by those 2 fluffy balls of powder. Pfft! A big mouthful of blood spurted out from Xiang Xingfei's mouth. His body flew out and fell heavily onto the ground. The ground split open and he was embedded in the gravel. Xiang Xingfei was in so much pain that his face contorted. Chapter 32-24. At this moment, a gloomy voice suddenly appeared in Xiang Xingfei's mind. Trash, you can't even do such a small thing. What use do I have for you? The voice was so deep that it made people panic. The moment Xiang Xingfei heard the voice, his whole body stiffened. Even the pain in his body was thrown to the back of his mind. Palace master, he replied in a trembling voice in his mind. The gloomy voice continued, that woman called Mo Ying is not an ordinary person. Ordinary methods can't deal with her. Xiang Xingfei shuddered. Then, what do you think I should do, Palace Lord? Trash. The gloomy voice sneered. Although it was ethereal, Xiang Xingfei could feel a chill spreading on his scalp. Mo Ying's soul is strange. I'll lend this to you. There was a ding sound. Something hit Xiang Xingfei's face. If the mission fails again, I'll refine all the people of the dark forces into dead puppets. Palace master, Xiang Xingfei's lips trembled. He grabbed the thing on his face and said in his mind, subordinate will obey palace master's order. Only the sound of the wind responded to him. The chill also gradually disappeared. Xiang Xingfei suddenly sat up from the ground. He looked around. He didn't find any trace of palace master. That voice, where did it come from? Palace master, is he here too? Xiang Xingfei grabbed the thing left by palace master. He endured the pain from Mo Ying's attack and raised his hand. He saw in his palm. He was holding a dagger in his hand. It was a pitch-black dagger with no other colors. It looked extremely strange. This dagger, what is it used for? Does Palace Master mean to use this dagger, to deal with Mo Ying? And Palace Master said, Mo Ying's soul is strange, what does that mean? Holding the dagger, Xiang Xingfa was thinking about Palace Master's words. Once again, Mo Ying launched another attack. The cold wind made Xiang Xingfa's hair stand on end. His eyes widened. At the moment when Mo Ying attacked, his arm was being controlled by an invisible force. He suddenly raised his hand, ignoring Mo Ying's 2 balls of powder, and forcefully stabbed the dagger into Mo Ying's shoulder. Ah! Xiang Xingfa felt as if his internal organs were being crushed by the 2 balls of powder, and they were all broken. Waves of pain caused him to be unable to straighten his body. He was in great pain. He didn't see anything either. In front of him, the girl whose dagger had been stabbed by him suddenly froze on the spot. Mo Ying slowly lowered her head and expressionlessly looked at her shoulder, at the dagger with only the handle exposed. Her lifeless eyes flickered for a moment. It was very subtle, not obvious, and disappeared in a flash. The next moment, as if she had lost all her strength, her petite body fell limply to the ground. Miss Mo. The great general noticed Mo Ying's situation and immediately killed the Palace of Darkness disciple in front of him and rushed over. General, don't go over. Miss Mo, look at her. A soldier's voice was full of fear as he stopped the great general. When the great general got closer, he noticed, Mo Ying had fallen to the ground. Her petite body was actually enveloped by a black aura. Her petite body was faintly discernible within the black aura. Chapter 32-25. What's going on? What happened to Miss Mo? Miss Mo wouldn't she be assimilated by the Palace of Darkness? The soldier said with a trembling voice. The general's face darkened. This black chi was indeed strange. However, it felt different from the cold black chi released by the Palace of Darkness. But, he couldn't be sure. The black chi on Mo Ying had nothing to do with the Palace of Darkness. The general stood still and pondered for a long time. In the end, he walked towards Mo Ying. This was the friend of the emperor's wife. How could he watch coldly and let the friend of the emperor's wife perish on her own? The general was about to approach Mo Ying and help her up. Then he heard the dull voice coming from the black chi, "Get out of the way, don't worry about me." The voice was as indifferent as ever. But he could hear it. Her aura was much weaker. Miss Mo. The general said worriedly, frowning tightly, "I'll send you to a safe place to rest first. You can't have an accident. Defend Valley Wind City," Mo Ying said word by word in a rigid tone. After the voice fell, her petite body trembled and curled up again. It seemed that there was a painful feeling spreading in her body. The black chi that enveloped her was getting thicker and thicker. General. Not good. Another group of undead puppets and disciples of the Palace of Darkness are coming from the Palace of Darkness. Suddenly, the shouts of the soldiers came from not far away. The general was startled and turned to look at the soldiers in shock. The soldiers were also full of fear. "General, what should we do? Now we are already at a disadvantage. Another group of undead puppets and disciples of the Palace of Darkness are coming. We can't hold on." Not far away, after hearing the shouts of the soldiers, Xiang Xingfa, whose internal organs had been broken by Mo Ying's powder ball, heard the shouts of the soldiers. He couldn't help but be ecstatic. It must be his little Moo. It must be his little Moo coming. Battle cries rang out as they charged forward. Another group of undead puppets and disciples of the Palace of Darkness joined in. The pressure on the soldiers of Valley Wind City was even greater. The general was forced to pick up his weapon and deal with the enemy in front of him first. Little by little, the soldiers of Valley Wind City retreated more and more, and the range became smaller and smaller. Finally, the soldiers of Valley Wind City and the disciples of the Imperial Palace could only stay near the Valley Wind City wall. He was surrounded by the pincer attack from the Palace of Darkness. The great general and the first-rate soldiers kept retreating while protecting Mo Ying within the range of their protection. "Great general, what should we do?" The soldiers nervously stared at the undead corpse puppets around them and asked in a low voice. The general gripped his spear tightly. "Delay. Wait until Madame D and the others return." But, there was simply no way to drag this out. The current situation. The only option was to abandon the city and flee. Otherwise, all of them would be buried here. The soldiers wanted to say the rest, but they didn't dare to. Everyone could see that. There was no way the great general would choose to abandon the city and flee. The atmosphere was extremely tense. The corpses of the Netherworld Palace slowly closed the encirclement. Cough, cough, cough. Xiang Xingfa coughed and panted heavily. He reached out to the disciples of Gloomy Palace and said, You're here to save my captain, right? Quick, carry me back." Chapter 32-26. Little Mumu. Where's little Mumu? Xiang Xingfa was startled, and immediately shouted. A pair of malicious eyes glared at the disciples of the Palace of Darkness who bypassed him and rushed to the city wall. "Little Mumu." Suddenly, a charming voice was heard. Immediately, a fragrant wind wafted through the air. A beautiful figure walked gracefully past the surrounding disciples of the Palace of Darkness and slowly walked over. The woman covered her bright red lips and giggled, "What a pity, your little Mumu is not here yet." When Xiang Xingfa's gaze landed on the concubine's figure, his pupils suddenly widened. There seemed to be something stuck in his neck. "Dai. Ah, Dai, it's you." The person who came was one of the 4 great saint techniques of the dark forces, the only woman, Butterfly Saint Technique. The Butterfly Saint Technique smiled flirtatiously. "Ah, Xiang, it's really not easy to see you half dead." "Ah, Dai, save me." Xiang Xingfa's lips were trembling violently. Butterfly Saint Technique's smile was even more flirtatious. But in her eyes, there was a flash of resentment. She chuckled softly, "Save you. In the beginning, when you pushed me into the refining vessel of the corpse puppet for Si Yenmu, did you ever think of saving me?" Xiang Xingfa's face turned pale. I just made a mistake. It wasn't my intention." It wasn't my intention." Butterfly Saint Technique's smile was even more charming. "Then, I'm not willing to save you now, and I want you to die here. It's also not my intention." "Ah, Dai, you can't do this." Xiang Xingfa moved his hands in a panic. We are all working for the Palace of Darkness. Palace Master appeared just now. If I die, you won't be able to explain it to Palace Master, right? It's a pity." Butterfly Saint Technique bent down and looked down at Xiang Xingfa. "It was Palace Master who asked me to come here, because Palace Master doesn't trust your ability at all, you useless thing." After saying that, she lifted her foot and ruthlessly stomped on Xiang Xingfa's chest. "Don't worry, I won't let you be lonely. After you die, I will immediately send your beloved Si Yenmu to accompany you." The Butterfly Saint Law's eyes burned with hatred. She concentrated her dark force on her feet and exerted force. Her foot pierced through the heart of the sacred elephant. The great general and the others watched as the 2 from the Palace of Gloom suddenly killed each other. The Elephant Holy Technique, who had been clamoring to take over their Valley Wind City, died in the hands of the Palace of Darkness just like that. The soldiers looked at the sacred Butterfly Technique with even more fear. This woman was even scarier than Elephant Saint Dharma. After the Butterfly Saint Technique dealt with the Elephant Saint Technique, she wasn't in a hurry to attack the soldiers. Her graceful figure slowly walked towards Mo Ying, who was shrouded in black qi. She bent down and pulled out the black dagger that was stuck in Mo Ying's shoulder. Mo Ying groaned in pain. "You're the little guy that the Palace Master wants." The butterfly saint technique indifferently glanced at the dagger in her hand, then slowly shifted her gaze to Mo Yuing. You stay away from Miss Mo. What do you want to do to Miss Mo? The great general and the soldiers wanted to rush forward, but were stopped by the disciples of the Palace of Darkness in the front row. Chapter 32:27. How dare you? The great general's eyes widened as he bellowed furiously, Miss Mo is a good friend of the Imperial Palace's mistress. If you touch Miss Mo, the Overlord will not let you off. Butterfly Saint Technique's smile was incomparably gorgeous. Great General, I'm afraid you still don't know about the grudge between us and that little slut Yi Qing Luo. If you didn't mention her, I could still be a little gentler, but you... The next moment, Butterfly Saint Technique's expression turned gloomy and her tone was filled with viciousness. If you want to blame yourself for being that little bastard's friend. Butterfly Saint Technique's fingers suddenly clenched tightly. That jet-black dagger seemed to be shrouded in a layer of black light. Her eyes were filled with malice as she suddenly stabbed towards Mo Yuying's body. Mo Yuying, who was shrouded in black qi, was unable to move. But her consciousness was very clear. She tried her best to adjust the profound energy in her body, trying to avoid the dagger which was heading towards her. But, no matter how much she tried to concentrate, the profound energy in her body was like a plate of loose sand, floating in her body. Indistinctly, there seemed to be something tearing her body. No. It wasn't her body that was tearing. It was soul. She could clearly feel it. Her soul was slowly peeling away from her body. Mo Yuing panted. His usually emotionless face now revealed a pained expression. It had been a long time since she felt pain. Looks like this black dagger was deliberately targeted at her. Mo Yuing shut her eyes tightly. Godless Island must have something to do with the secluded palace to be able to obtain this black dagger. Over at the Godless Island. Finally couldn't hold it in any longer. Finally wanted to destroy her. Island Saint. Ha! Godless Island. Godless Palace. Mo Yuying's fingers tightened. But because of the tearing feeling in her body, she loosened her grip helplessly. Mo Yuying's thoughts were running wild. But in reality, it was just a blink of an eye. Butterfly Saint Technique, who was holding the black dagger, had a sinister glint in her eyes as she stabbed towards Mo Yuying's face. Clang! There was a loud sound of collision. Mo Yuing didn't feel an even more painful pain than she had imagined. Her eyelashes fluttered, and she slowly opened her eyes. In front of him, a red feather fan that seemed to be burning with raging flames pressed against the black dagger. The hand that held the feather fan was slender and fair, sparkling and translucent like fine jade. It was as if the owner of the hand had casually blocked the black dagger. Mo Yuying's empty eyes slightly widened, revealing a rarely seen surprise and joy. Sacred Butterfly Technique, did you ask for my permission to stab my little shadow a few times? A clear and melodious voice rang out leisurely on the battlefield. It was clearly a sweet and smiling voice. However, when the people present heard it, they could not help but feel a chill run down their spines, a bone-chilling coldness. When the Butterfly Saint Technique heard this voice, her body stiffened. Her hand that was holding the black arm trembled uncontrollably. Following the raging flame feather fan, the Butterfly Saint Technique's line of sight slowly focused on the owner of the feather fan. Yi Qing Luo's arrival was within her expectations, but also unexpected. After all, from the start of the war till now, Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo had never appeared. Unexpected. Because before the secluded palace took action, Feng Ling had solemnly vowed that she had a way to delay Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian. Chapter 32:28. And within his expectations was because of Yi Qing Luo. That unstable factor. With Yi Qing Luo around, everything was possible. The butterfly saint technique stared blankly at Yi Qing Luo, staring at that fiery red robe with an enchanting smile on her face. His gaze then slowly shifted to the young girl, the man dressed in billowing purple robes who looked like a banished immortal. Inexplicably, the butterfly saint technique felt her legs turn to jelly. Shadow. Yi Qing Luo didn't look at the butterfly saint technique anymore, but squatted down and stretched out her hand to support Mo Yuing. Don't touch me. Mo Yuing hurriedly opened her mouth. Her voice was like a machine, as if it was in fast forward. As soon as she finished speaking, her eyebrows knitted tightly together. Looking at Mo Yuing's painful expression, how could Yi Qing Luo's hand stop? Don't talk anymore, I'm here, everything is fine now. Yi Qing Luo's hand stretched out towards Mo Yuing. No. It will devour. Mo Yuing anxiously wanted to avoid it. But the words that came out of his mouth were suddenly stuck in his throat. Because Yi Qing Luo's hand passed through the black qi on her body and touched her body. The soft little hands caused Mo Yuing's delicate body to tremble. Then, Mo Yuing felt that the tearing pain in her body, the feeling of her soul leaving her body, was easily suppressed by that hand. Mo Yuing's beautiful eyes were slightly startled. His empty and lifeless eyes were fixated on Yi Qing Luo's hand. That hand seemed to have the ability to purify. It purified all the black aura around her. Her petite body was hugged by the girl's slender arms that gave her a sense of security. It's all right now, with me around, no one can hurt you. Yi Qing Luo's voice was light, but it was filled with warmth that made one feel at ease. Mo Yuing's eyelashes fluttered as she stared blankly at the face that was so close to her. His heart had not fluctuated at all. At this moment, there were faint signs of recovery. Whoosh! Suddenly, Mo Yuing's sharp senses detected an icy cold intent coming from the side. She quickly moved her eyes and looked in the direction of the cold attack. Then, he met with a pair of icy, cold eyes. That was Di Zun. Why was the overlord staring at her like that? Mo Yuing blinked her eyes as she tilted her head, looking at Mo Xian, whose expression was getting darker and darker. Noticing Mo Yuing's movements, Yi Qing Luo's vision also looked over. After seeing Mo Xian's expression, Yi Qing Luo rolled her eyes at him. I treat Shadow as my younger sister, so hugging her is very normal. Could it be that you want to hug her? Mo Xian's face sank as he spat out two words, no. Then why are you glaring at my shadow for? Yi Qing Luo shielded Mo Yuing as she hugged her tightly. Mo Xian's face darkened further. No matter how slow Mo Yuing's reaction was, at this moment, he had a strong feeling. The overlord seemed like he wanted to forcefully pull her out from Qing Luo's embrace. Cough. Well, let me take care of Shadow. Yan Xiao Yi saw the overlord's expression and rushed out to smooth things over. She took Mo Yuing from Yi Qing Luo's arms. Qing Luo, settle the secluded palace's side first. I'll take care of the Shadow, I'll take care of it. Saying that, she used her peripheral vision to shoot a glance at Mo Xian's direction. Mo Yuing was switched into Yan Xiaoyi's arms just like that. Mo Xian's expression then took a turn for the better. Yi Qing Luo. Chapter 32-29. Yi Qing Luo stared fiercely at Mo Xian before shifting her gaze onto Butterfly Saint Dharma. Her lips curled up as she smiled sweetly. Butterfly Saint Dharma seems to be very shocked to see me. Butterfly Saint Dharma stared at Yi Qing Luo as her heart started to feel uneasy. It had only been a few months since she last met Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's aura, as compared to before, was much more oppressive. She still remembered the first time she met Yi Qing Luo. Although Yi Qing Luo had a little bit of intelligence, her reaction was extremely fast. but standing beside the overlord. She was just a young lady who could only rely on the overlord to survive. She even felt that she could totally kill Yiqing Luo easily. But, just a few short months, Yiqing Luo had already grown to, standing beside the overlord, it would not cover up her radiance. As though, only she had the right to stand beside the overlord. Butterfly Saint Dharma's heart trembled fiercely. Yiqing Luo's growth, even she, when facing Yiqing Luo, wanted to give way, to avoid Yiqing Luo's sharpness. I'm also quite shocked to see you. Yiqing Luo continued to smile as she spoke. She didn't feel awkward because Butterfly Saint Dharma didn't reply her. She smiled sweetly. Shouldn't the mission of invading South Continent be Butterfly Saint Dharma? Butterfly Saint Dharma took a deep breath as she clenched her fists, pretending to be calm. Yiqing Luo, South Continent secluded palace is mine. That young lady, secluded palace is also mine. If you know what's good for you, hand over that young lady, otherwise. Her face sunk as she spoke sinisterly. You don't wish for these soldiers, Imperial Palace's disciples and your friends to be infected by the large number of dead corpses, right? As Butterfly Saint Dharma said that, her heart gradually gained some confidence. She raised her chin. I know, you have ways to deal with the dead corpses. But a large number of dead corpses, are you sure you have a way to deal with them? When Yiqing Luo heard that, she giggled softly. Butterfly Saint Dharma, are you sure? Those threats that you said, will come true. Are you sure I don't have a way to destroy a large number of undead corpse puppets in one go? You can try. A layer of frost appeared on the Butterfly Sacred Technique's beautiful face. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes rose slightly as her lips curled into an enchanting smile. Looks like Butterfly Saint Technique still doesn't know what happened in the Palace of Seclusion. She touched her chin and smiled wickedly. Holy Butterfly Technique, do you want to know where my dear Oxian and I rushed back to Valley Wind City? The Butterfly Saint Technique's face stiffened. She had a vague guess in her heart. East of the city, behind the ruined temple, Yiqing Luo stared at the Butterfly Saint Technique's eyes as she slowly spat out her red lips word by word. Chapter 3230. Who was it? Butterfly Saint Law's pupils dilated. A figure appeared in her mind. Feng Ling. It was Feng Ling who told them with absolute certainty. She had a way to delay Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian. She had a way to make use of Valley Wind City's ordinary citizens' trust towards her, to help Secluded Palace to attack Valley Wind City. It was because of this. After Elephant Saint Law finished probing. That was why the Butterfly Saint Technique had brought her team to the battlefield. What Butterfly Saint Law wanted to do. Not only did she want to take revenge on Xiang Xingfa, who had pushed her into the vessel of the corpse puppet for Si Yanmu and almost made her feed to the corpse puppet, and to take the credit for attacking Valley Wind City. But Yiqing Luo appeared. Dmo Xian appeared. And not only did he appear, he also resolved Secluded Palace's base in South Waves Continent. The base was resolved. It was equivalent to Secluded Palace's power in South Waves Continent had been disbanded, which represented Secluded Palace's current power, which left only Valley Wind City's surroundings were surrounded by these Secluded Palace's disciples and the surviving, no more than 300 puppets. And she was still thinking about the base, the puppets, or the Secluded Palace's disciples' dreams, were all gone. The base was destroyed. Secluded Palace had no more reinforcements. But Valley Wind City's reinforcements had arrived. Not only Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo's return. They also brought along a large batch of Imperial Palace's disciples. Those Imperial Palace's disciples were imposing and imposing. One look and one knew that they were the Imperial Palace's outstanding disciples. Furthermore, Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo's return. It gave the Valley Wind City's soldiers a huge boost in morale. The current situation was clear. Butterfly Saint Law's gorgeous eyes were sinister and her distorted features made one horrified. Feng Ling. It was Feng Ling, that scoundrel. She should have taken precautions against Feng Ling. That scoundrel loved the Overlord deeply. How would she possibly help Secluded Palace sincerely, help them? All of this was Feng Ling's scoundrel plan. Butterfly Saint Law cursed Feng Ling hatefully in her heart. Yiqing Luo, who had been staring at Butterfly Saint Law, squinted her eyes. When he saw the resentment in the Butterfly Saint Technique's eyes, the corners of her lips curled up a little. As expected, the sacred Butterfly Technique was suspicious of Feng Ling. If that was the case, how could Windling stay in the Palace of Darkness? Didn't Wind Chime like to scheme? This was the first gift she returned to him. Yiqing Luo's brows were still enchanting, but that enchanting did not reach her eyes. Retreat! Retreat! A chill rose in the heart of the Butterfly Saint Law. She clenched her fists and sternly ordered, "All evacuate Valley Wind City." The murderous aura lingered in the sky. The Butterfly Saint Technique only felt that her limbs were icy cold. She endured the rotten smell of the corpses, hid under the undead puppets, and quickly retreated. At this moment, the Dark Nether Palace disciples were also affected by the aura of the battlefield. As soon as he heard the Butterfly Saint Technique's command, one by one, they quickly retreated. Originally, how quickly they attacked the soldiers of Valley Wind City from the front and back. At this moment, they were retreating as fast as they could. However, Valley Wind City is not a place where your secluded palace can come and go as you please. The young lady's clear voice was pleasant to the ears. Just as they retreated a few steps back, the Imperial Palace's disciples surrounded the disciples of the Palace of Darkness and the undead corpse puppets from all directions, blocking their escape route. Chapter 32-31. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly, as her brows were curved into a smile. "After all, I've taken advantage of you. This is the deal between me and South Continent, so since you've entered Valley Wind City, then don't even think of leaving." Butterfly Saint Technique's gaze swept across the surrounding Imperial Palace's disciples as her heart was filled with anger. In her imagination, she should have led her team to invade the South Waves continent and obtained this merit. Obviously, the one who was surrounded and trapped without any way to resist was Valley Wind City. Obviously, Nether Palace should be the one to win. Even the citizens of Valley Wind City had betrayed them. No. Wrong. All these should have been borne by Elephant Saint Technique. Why was it that the one who had no way to resist had become her Butterfly Saint Technique? You Nether Palace had repeatedly targeted me and the people around me, so you deserve to die. Especially when you've hurt Shadow. Yiqing Luo slowly walked towards Butterfly Saint Technique. Her footsteps were light and slow, noble and elegant. The strong imposing manner that came charging towards her made it hard for Butterfly Saint Technique to breathe. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes met with Butterfly Saint Technique's eyes. Her long and narrow eyes were curved, and the corners of her mouth were raised into a smile. But Butterfly Saint Technique could clearly see the murderous intent in the depths of those sparkling eyes. Butterfly Saint Technique's heart suddenly trembled. An icy cold intent surged up from the bottom of her feet and spread to her limbs. She couldn't control herself as she started to tremble slightly. The pain that Shadow had suffered, the Imperial Palace's disciples' sacrifice, I want you to repay 100 times 4. The last 4 words, Yiqing Luo stared at Butterfly Saint Technique's eyes, word by word, squeezed out from the gaps of her teeth. Under this cold gaze, Butterfly Saint Technique felt a surge of fear rising from the bottom of her heart. An enormous pressure shrouded her body and mind. No. Not me. Your friend wasn't hurt by me, it's Elephant Saint technique. Not me. Butterfly Saint technique's voice trembled. The person who killed so many Imperial Palace's disciples is also Elephant Saint technique's people. It has nothing to do with me, nothing to do with me. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as her smile became even more enchanting. But, you killed Elephant Saint technique, so I can only seek revenge from you. The sacred butterfly technique shook her head vigorously. Even if, you didn't hurt Shadow. But, you already had the intention to give her a few stabs. Sony, you deserve to be punished. Yiqing Luo continued to smile as she spoke, the flowing light in her eyes was crafty and bright. During the conversation, Yiqing Luo was already 3 steps away from the Butterfly Saint technique. The Butterfly Saint technique could deeply feel the majestic aura that was released from Yiqing Luo, suppressing her heavily. From the moment you appeared here, you should bear the consequences. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a teasing smile. The Butterfly Sacred Technique's eyes widened. Under this extreme fear, the Butterfly Saint technique was like a broken jar, as she raised her palm and slammed it down towards Yiqing Luo's chest. Whoosh, this palm strike landed on thin air. The Sacred Butterfly Technique's palm fiercely slapped the air. The aftershock of the strong profound energy caused a few more cracks to appear on the ground. The Butterfly Sacred Technique's face paled and she looked around nervously. She was afraid that the red figure would suddenly appear beside her. However, no matter how vigilant she wasn't able to see any remnant shadow of Yiqing Luo. Even when Yiqing Luo appeared beside her, she didn't notice it at all. Until Yiqing Luo's silvery bell-like laughter was heard by her ear. The Butterfly Saint technique was then alarmed as she swiftly retreated to one side. Ah! This retreat. Chapter 32-32. Butterfly Saint Dharma was in so much pain that her entire body turned stiff. The robe on her chest was stained with blood. She turned her head sideways and discovered that the young lady who was laughing beside her earlier had unknowingly appeared behind her. The young lady's eyes were enchanting, her pink lips had a slight smile and her face was innocent and pure. But the action of her hands was totally incompatible with her expression. The young lady's hand moved slowly. Butterfly Saint Dharma felt that the wound on her back was as though it was cut open by a sharp weapon. Oh! Suddenly, the sharp blade was pulled away from her back. Fresh blood spurted out. She lost the strength to support herself. Butterfly Saint Dharma's body fell heavily onto the ground. A distorted face, so painful that her facial features could not be seen. Yiqing Luo shook the blood-stained dagger in her hand lightly. Yiqing Luo bent over and looked down at Butterfly Saint Dharma. This is the pain that the shadow is suffering, there are still 99 more stabs. Butterfly Saint Dharma was in so much pain that she almost fainted. But her consciousness was still clear. She could clearly feel the feeling of the sharp blade piercing through the flesh and bones. She could even hear the sound of the sharp blade entering the flesh and bones. 99 stabs, pay back 100 times. Did Yiqing Luo really want to stab her 100 times? Don't worry, within these 100 stabs, I will not let you die. Yiqing Luo kindly smiled, you should believe in my medical skills. Butterfly Saint Dharma's face was ashen. It would be better to just let her die. Yiqing Luo was still smiling, but the expression on her face turned solemn. Soldiers of Valley Wind City, Imperial Palace's disciples, the team leader who invaded southern continent has been captured. Next, it's your battlefield. Her voice was clear and ethereal, following the wind, resounding through every corner of the battlefield. The soldiers were burning with fighting intent. The battlefield, clashing and killing once again. But this time round, the situation had completely reversed. Secluded Palace's disciples, dead corpses and puppets were almost defeated. Grand General, please lock up this team leader. Later on, I will take revenge for the remaining 99 stabs. Yi Qing Luo looked at the Grand General and smiled. The reversal of the situation made the usually dignified Grand General's eyes redden. He solemnly looked at Yi Qing Luo as he clenched his fist tightly, replying in a sonorous and forceful voice, "Imperial Madam, leave it to me. I'll definitely look after her for you." Yi Qing Luo smiled without saying a word. As the general held the butterfly saint technique with one hand and walked towards the inn, the butterfly sacred law could clearly hear the young girl behind her. She said to the man beside her in a light tone, "The people of Palace of Gloomy Darkness are really stupid. They really think they can rely on wind chime to make the people betray them and let them conquer the South Waves continent. Are they questioning your attractiveness?" The young woman smiled and continued, "It's all thanks to Feng Ling that we were able to take care of the Palace of Darkness base and successfully take back the South Water continent. The next time we meet, I'll have to thank her properly." Wind chimes, wind chimes. The butterfly saint technique roared this name in her heart. The great general carried the butterfly saint technique into the inn. Yi Qing Luo then stopped her voice. Dmo Xian's eyes drooped as he gazed at the young lady who was hugging his arm as his lips curled up slightly. "What are you scheming now?" "I'm returning wind chimes as gift." Yi Qing Luo's eyes curved as her slender fingers poked Dmo Xian's chest fiercely. "Why, feeling heartache?" Dmo Xian's large palm wrapped around her fingers as his voice was calm but gentle. "Yeah, heartache." Yi Qing Luo's smile faded as her hand started to struggle. "What a great Dmo Xian. You dare to feel heartache for another woman." Chapter 32-33. What's your heartache for? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she crossed her arms and looked at Yi Qing Luo, as though to express, "I'll just quietly watch you continue to weave, see what kind of flowers you can weave." Dmo Xian's expression didn't change as he held up one of her hands, his thin lips curled into an intoxicating smile. "Naturally, my heartache for you to spend so much effort just to return the gift." What a fellow, he actually wanted to use the beauty trap to seduce her. Ha! Did he really think that she, Yi Qing Luo, was immune to his beauty? Yi Qing Luo snorted as she arrogantly raised her chin. "To deal with these two scums, why do I need to waste my brain? But I'll accept your heartache." Saying that, her slender fair fingers lifted Dmo Xian's chin as she tiptoed and pulled his body downwards, pressing her lips against his. She was indeed. Towards Dmo Xian's beauty trap, there was no way she was immune. Dmo Xian's beauty trap worked on her 100 times. "The battle here has ended, let's pack up and head over to East Continent to take a look at the situation." Yi Qing Luo released his lips as her little hand encircled his neck from his chin as she gave an enchanting smile. Dmo Xian's eyes were deep as his gaze hit a certain special emotion that was jumping. His gaze stared intensely at her pink lips. Yi Qing Luo wasn't an ignorant young lady, so how would she not understand the meaning of Dmo Xian's gaze? That kiss was considered as igniting the fire. Yi Qing Luo's smile became even more malicious. "The biggest credit for South Continent to be able to be reclaimed is you. Although, I really want to reward you, but the time and place isn't right, so I can't do anything about it." Dmo Xian's thin lips curled upwards as he suddenly bent over, hugging her waist as he carried her in his arms. Yi Qing Luo was shocked as she hooked her arms around his neck. Dmo Xian carried her as they crossed the battlefield, which was filled with blood, past the surrounding soldiers and disciples who were still entangled with each other. Just like the both of them didn't belong to this battlefield, didn't belong here. And the surrounding people who were entangled with each other also completely didn't dare to go near them. Just like that, they allowed Dmo Xian to carry Yi Qing Luo as they walked towards the direction of the inn. But Everyone only saw such a scene that was full of pretentiousness. But Yiqing Luo was nestled in Dmo Xian's arms with her face flushed red. There were several times when she gritted her teeth and wanted to punch his chest with her fist. She really wanted to grab Dmo Xian's lapel and tell him those onlookers who thought that the scene of the overlord carrying her away from the battlefield was very cool, all of you have been deceived by him. She was deceived by his invisible aura of pretentiousness. What do you mean by acting cool? He was AF** king bully, okay. At the same time, Dmo Xian carried her up. Then, he softly whispered something into her ear. If there's no problem with the time and place, are you at my disposal? That voice had a deliberately seductive magnetism. The teasing Yiqing Luo almost couldn't control herself. My boyfriend is too much of a beast. He wants to push me down all the time. What should I do? I'm waiting online, it's urgent. There was no suspense in this war. Secluded Palace's disciples were all captured. The corpses and puppets were all killed by the Imperial Palace's disciples, devil class and other youngsters. The soldiers used those special weapons to kill all of them. Whereas after the battle in Valley Wind City ended, under Yiqing Luo's reminder, the Grand General. Chapter 32-34. In less than 3 days, the southern wave continent returned to its former tranquility. All over the South Billow continent, the people who were still alive walked out of the darkness and saw the sun again. This was because the monarch of the South Waves continent had flooded the South Waves continent before the Nether Palace had conquered the South Waves continent. This caused countless noble clans to look down on the Southern Wave continent's royal family and insult them. Therefore, the sect master of the Gu Feng sect, Gu Ming, temporarily took over the responsibilities of the imperial family and reorganized the southern water continent. Gu Ming was in this battle. In the South Billow continent, it was deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. He would take charge of the overall situation. No one disagreed. Things were settled just like that. They gathered in the afternoon 3 days later. Yiqing Luo and the others were already prepared to leave South Tide Continent. The general hurried over, his face full of guilt. Lord Overlord, Madam Emperor. Oh no, Darkness Palace. Darkness Palace's team leader, Sheet, the great general, who was always dignified and straightforward, was now stuttering and unable to form a complete sentence. She ran away, right? Yiqing Luo smiled as she said what the great general didn't finish his sentence. The general was startled and immediately lowered his head in guilt. I'm sorry. It's my fault. He pursed his lips tightly as he suddenly knelt down towards Yiqing Luo. May Madam punish me. No need. Yiqing Luo waved her hand as she helped him up, so be it. But this is a captive that Madame D worked hard to capture. The general clenched his fists. The captives he had been guarding had escaped from him. To him, this was a fatal blow. Not only had he let down Yiqing Luo's trust, he would also feel sorry for his armor. Moreover, he had let down his duty as the great general. It's all right. You don't have to feel guilty. Yiqing Luo smiled warmly at the Grand General. If I don't want her to leave Valley Wind City, do you think she can escape? The general's pupils dilated little by little. The meaning of these words was, did the Emperor Madam let the leader of the Palace of Darkness go on purpose? Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with smiles as she nodded calmly. Why? The general could not understand. Yiqing Luo's pink lips rose as she gave a crafty smile. She's already a dying person, how can we let her die so easily? Naturally, it's to make her do something valuable before she dies. Looking at Yiqing Luo's confident and flamboyant, smiling face, the anxiety in the great general's heart gradually calmed down. Looks like everything was under the lady's control. It was no wonder that after the leader of the team from Abyss Palace was locked up, the Lady Monarch didn't say anything about the interrogation of the leader of the Palace of Darkness team or the results. He just locked up the team leader of the Dark Nether Palace here, just so that the leader of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness could escape from Valley Wind City. However, the general did not understand what the lady meant by final value. But he trusted the imperial lady. As long as D. Foreign decided, there was absolutely no deviation. South Continent's matter has been settled and Palace of Darkness has suffered a heavy loss. I've left a batch of weapons to deal with the undead puppets for you. Palace of Darkness. For a short period of time, they will absolutely not dare to find trouble with South Continent. Yi Qing Luo patted the great general's shoulder. Chapter 32-35. Emin, Yi Qing Luo smiled. I stayed in South Continent because of the deal with Sect Master Gu. Now that the deal has been completed, it's time for us to leave. The Grand General's lips moved. A burly man didn't know how to speak. In his heart, he didn't wish for Yi Qing Luo and the rest to leave. But Yi Qing Luo's words were indeed reasonable. After some time, he pursed his lips. When does Imperial Madam intend to leave? Should be latest by tomorrow. Yi Qing Luo's smile grew, giving off an unfathomable feeling. Not knowing why, the Grand General felt that Yi Qing Luo's words contained some sort of message. That unfathomable tone. As though everything was within her grasp. Imperial Madam, may I explain this matter to Sect Master Gu? The Grand General cupped his fists and inquired respectfully. Imperial Madam is the savior of South Continent. Sect Master Gu must want to send Imperial Madam off personally. Yi Qing Luo nodded. We are leaving. Naturally we should inform the Master of South Continent. Night. Yi Qing Luo and the rest under the Grand General's lead arrived at the Royal Palace in South Continent. In the reception hall, there were many exquisite delicacies. But although it was exquisite, but because South Continent had yet to regain its original richness, the ingredients were actually very simple. But one could tell Gu Ming had put in a lot of effort. Gu Ming had already heard about Yi Qing Luo and the rest leaving. He didn't stop Yi Qing Luo and the rest from leaving, but respectfully and gratefully thanked everyone, and stood up, toasting everyone a cup of wine. Gu Ming tactfully struck up a conversation with the Grand General from time to time. This parting banquet was rather comfortable. But just as the banquet was about to end, a guard hurried over and whispered something into Gu Ming's ear. Gu Ming's expression instantly darkened. Yi Qing Luo acutely sensed that Gu Ming's gaze was on her, taking a look. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. In her heart, she was clear what had happened. Moments later, Gu Ming waved the guard away, looking at Yi Qing Luo awkwardly. Imperial Madam, I have something I want to discuss with you. Yi Qing Luo put down the wine glass in her hand, her long and narrow eyes raised upwards. That smile, which didn't look like a smile, was even more mysterious and unfathomable. Even Gu Ming, who had been in a high position for a long time, could not help but feel pressured. Let me guess. Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth with a light smile. Her voice was clear and calm. Could it be that monarch from East Continent has come to visit? Gu Ming was surprised. Madam, did you hear it? Yi Qing Luo smiled sweetly and shook her head. I guessed. Gu Ming's heart was filled with even more admiration towards Yi Qing Luo. Since Yi Qing Luo had already guessed it, he didn't mince his words. It's indeed the East Tide monarch who paid a visit, I'm afraid. Chapter 32-36. But what Gu Ming didn't expect was, it wasn't only East Wave monarch who came. An Jade Sky Sect Master, Hao Nanren. Hao Nanren's face darkened and that plump face was filled with unwillingness. East Wave Monarch was walking in front with a friendly smile as he walked in quickly and cupped his fists towards Gu Ming intimately. Brother Gu, long time no see. Congratulations Brother Gu for protecting the South Wave continent. Gu Ming's gaze was fixed on Hao Nanren, who was standing behind East Wave Monarch with an unfriendly expression as his lips twitched stiffly. Protecting the South Wave continent is not my credit. I know. In this hall filled with servants, East Wave Monarch didn't address himself as Emperor, as he placed his status very low. Anne. Miss Yi, and the World Mercenary Group. He accurately cupped his fists towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. His vision, when it met Yi Qing Luo's side, on that indolent, peerless man, his expression, congealed instantly. Following that, it was a subconscious action. East Wave Monarch knelt down. This action startled Hao Nanren, who had a sullen expression on his face. He looked towards the direction where East Wave Monarch knelt down. His vision was fixed on Yi Qing Luo. By right, with Dmo Xian's existence, basically no one would be able to ignore him. But unfortunately, Hao Nanren had suffered the first humiliation in his life in Yi Qing Luo's hands. Towards Yi Qing Luo, he hated her to the extreme. Especially today, he was forcefully dragged by East Wave Monarch to apologize to her. Hao Nanren's heart was originally filled with rebellion and unwillingness. Now that he saw Yi Qing Luo's face, and because East Wave Monarch didn't care about his face and lowered himself to kneel down, it made the dissatisfaction in his heart completely burst out. Monarch, why are you kneeling down to that slut? Didn't I say that it was Sect Master Gu's credit to chase those people from secluded palace out of South Wave continent? What has it got to do with that slut? She's just a young lady, how can she overturn the heavens? Don't try any doctor in a desperate situation. Don't forget your identity. You represent the entire East Wave continent. Hao Nanren's words were filled with sincerity. Then, he looked at the East Wave sovereign with an extremely disappointed expression. His words nearly caused the East Wave sovereign to faint. He knelt on the ground and did not dare to raise his head. He tugged at Hao Nanren's sleeve and shouted in a low voice, "Shut up and kneel down." Monarch. Hao Nanren was enraged as well. Do you want to bring shame to the entire East continent? Sect Master of the Jade Dome sect. Gu Ming, who was sitting on the high seat, couldn't bear listening to these words. If you continue to speak rudely, my South Tide continent will not welcome you. Hao Nanren's face was gloomy, and a gust of cold wind shot out from his eyes that were almost invisible on his chubby face. If the East Wave sovereign hadn't forced him to come to the South Wave continent, did Gu Ming really think that he wanted to come? So what if the Southern Waves continent was taken back from the hands of the Netherworld Palace? He had experienced a war. The South Tide continent was no longer the same as before. If he was the East Wave sovereign, he would definitely lead his army to occupy the South Wave continent without a second word. In Hao Nanren's eyes, the current South Billow continent was not even worth mentioning. The East Wave sovereign actually had to lower himself. How could he put his own status so low? Chapter 32-37. Hao Nanren's words were indeed arrogant. The East Wave sovereign, who was kneeling on the ground, broke out in cold sweat. The East Wave sovereign was well aware of Hao Nanren's temperament. Because of this, the last time when Hao Nanren wanted to personally discuss the deal with Yi Qing Luo, she specially promised Hao Nanren half of the benefits of the kingdom. But unexpectedly, however, Hao Nanren still returned empty-handed. Although from Hao Nanren's mouth, he had pushed all the blame onto Yi Qing Luo. However, the East Wave sovereign was no fool. He was well aware of Hao Nanren's temperament. He also knew that it was Hao Nanren's fault that the two sides didn't come to an agreement last time. Later on, the South Waves continent was attacked by the Dark Nether Palace. East Wave Monarch was more or less interested, to test if Yiqing Luo and the others were really able to deal with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness and defend the South Wave continent. Then, after the war on the South Billow continent ended, without stopping, he rushed over with Hao Nanren. In East Wave's monarch's heart, Yiqing Luo and the others' abilities were obvious to all. However, Hao Nanren couldn't see the situation clearly and was still putting on airs. East Wave Monarch was so infuriated that he couldn't wait to strangle Hao Nanren. He retrieved the azure dragon pearl from his body and presented it to Yiqing Luo with both hands. The East Wave's sovereign racked his brains to think of a way to explain Hao Nanren's arrogant words. Gu Ming, who was sitting on the high seat, had already heavily slammed the table and sneered, "Good. Good. Since that's what the sect leader of the Jade Dome sect thinks of me, then I'll wait for the good news here. This sect master wants to see just how you are going to take down the South Billow continent. Make the South Tide continent your world." Gu Ming spat out each word through gritted teeth. This wasn't because he was relying on the presence of Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo, hence he dared to say these words. This was the courage of their South Tide continent. Just because the South Billow continent was damaged, it didn't mean that it could be bullied by other continents. If the South Billow continent could really be so easily humiliated by others, the South Billow continent wouldn't have lasted until now. If Hao Nan really wanted to fight this battle, I, Gu Ming, will accompany you to the end. Hao Nanren originally thought that his words would definitely scare Gu Ming so much that his face would turn pale and he would soften his tone and beg for mercy. However, he did not expect that Gu Ming would actually dare to accept his challenge. You really won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. I'll fulfill your wish. Hao Nanren clenched his fists, his eyes filled with murderous intent. He strode out of the hall and continued arrogantly, Gu Ming, after I conquer the South Continent, I will hang your corpse on the city gate for 3 days and 3 nights. Gu Ming gripped the seat tightly. His knuckles tightened and his fingertips turned white. He was suppressing his anger. Just as Hao Nanren was about to walk out of the hall, a lazy and cold voice suddenly sounded in the hall. There was a hint of amusement in the voice. Sect Master of the Jade Dome sect. You want to make the South Billow continent your world? Have you asked me? His voice was so light that there was not a hint of emotion in it. But, however, it caused a chill to run down one's spine. Hao Nanren's footsteps halted as he turned his head back abruptly. No matter how arrogant he was, the expression on his face had turned slightly grave. His vision followed the direction of the voice and looked towards Yiqing Luo. That purple-robed man beside her. His expression suddenly turned pale. Hao Nanren was stunned on the spot. Until East Billow Monarch bellowed in exasperation, "Scoundrel, hurry and kneel down." Hao Nanren then regained his senses. Chapter 32-38. His fat body was like a pile of meat. Hao Nanren finally understood. Why did East Billow Monarch kneel down towards Yiqing Luo the minute he entered? The person who East Billow Monarch was kneeling towards wasn't Yiqing Luo but the person beside her. The Overlord. Beside her. No, wait a minute. Why was the Overlord sitting beside Yiqing Luo? What was the relationship between them? Hao Nanren's intuition told him that he had missed out on some important information. However, the clear and melodious voice that floated over his head had already clearly indicated what exactly he had missed. Jade Dome Sect Sovereign's tone is really arrogant. The young lady giggled but her tone was filled with ridicule. Even my Xian isn't as arrogant as Jade Dome Sect Sovereign. My Xian. My. These 2 words kept replaying in Hao Nanren's mind. He raised his head abruptly. His eyes stared intently at Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian. He saw the young lady smiling sweetly as she snuggled into the man's arms. Whereas that noble and elegant overlord lowered his eyes as he gazed at the young lady as he gave an indulgent smile. That gaze was so gentle that water could be squeezed out. What kind of indulgence was this? Hao Nanren broke out in cold sweat. Yiqing Luo's eyes curved as she met Hao Nanren's gaze as she smiled evilly. In this case, Sect Master Gu and I will wait for Jade Dome Sect's arrival. Ah Xian and I would like to see with our own eyes how Jade Dome Sect's sovereign will turn South Tide Continent into Hao Nanren's world under our eyes. Yiqing Luo's voice was very soft and slow. It was as if they were discussing something extremely ordinary. Hao Nanren was sweating profusely when he heard that. East Billow Monarch immediately spoke, Overlord, Madam Emperor. Please be angry, please be angry. He's just anxious. Anxious? Yiqing Luo sneered, from what I see, he has the intention to replace me. One must know that, before the battle, Jade Dome Sect's sovereign was even more arrogant in front of me than today. East Billow Monarch was trembling in fear, Madam Emperor, even if he really has this intention, our East Billow royal family will absolutely not allow him to do this. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as her pink lips curled upwards, appearing to be filled with ridicule. I naturally believe in East Wave Monarch's heart. Yiqing Luo gave a faint smile, but Jade Dome Sect Master. She stood up, her red dress billowing like raging flames, pouring down in torrents. She slowly walked towards the kneeling East Wave Sovereign and Hao Nanren. One step a lotus. Every step she took. The East Wave Sovereign and Hao Nanren felt their hearts skip a beat. Moments later, Yiqing Luo stood in front of the both of them. She bent down and helped the East Wave Sovereign to his feet with a smile. The sleeves of the East Wave Sovereign were drenched in sweat. Yiqing Luo's face didn't reveal any trace of disgust as she continued smiling at the apprehensive East Wave's monarch. East Wave's monarch's heart is for the common people, I understand. The East Wave Sovereign shuddered. After helping the East Wave Sovereign up, Yiqing Luo's vision fell onto Hao Nanren. Does Jade Dome Sect's sovereign know the reason why the East Wave Sovereign specially came to the South Wave's continent to look for me? Hao Nanren's voice trembled as he replied hesitantly, yes, it's because the forces of the secluded Darkness Palace have already invaded East Wave's continent. Chapter 32-39. Say, consequences. Hao Nanren repeated these two words with a trembling voice. I believe that secluded Darkness Palace hopes to see the two continents fighting against each other. Hearing Hao Nanren's obvious tone of not knowing what he did wrong, Yiqing Luo's voice turned chilly. Jade Dome Sect Master has ever thought that after your two sects kill each other and suffer heavy losses, secluded Darkness Palace will reap the benefits? What will happen to the commoners of East Tide Continent? When Hao Nanren heard that, the fats on his body shook violently as he raised his head with a ghastly pale face. Yiqing Luo sneered, of course, Jade Dome Sect Master will definitely not bother about what will happen to those commoners. By then, Jade Dome Sect Master only needs to beg for mercy from secluded Darkness Palace and bring Jade Dome Sect to side with secluded Darkness Palace to protect his own life. These words were filled with ridicule. Hao Nanren's pale face suddenly flushed red. Whether he was angry or embarrassed, no one knew. Madam Emperor, no matter what Sect Master Hao does, he will definitely not side with secluded Darkness Palace. East Tide Monarch saw that Hao Nanren didn't express his loyalty for a long time as he immediately helped, this time. Sect Master Hao even brought the Azure Dragon Pearl personally to show his sincerity. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways at East Tide Monarch and the chilliness in her eyes made East Tide Monarch feel apprehensive. Her pink lips curled up as she gave a ridiculing smile as she spoke in an extremely indifferent tone, I didn't see sincerity, but I saw. Jade Dome sect master's ambition. This gaze, this tone. It was very obvious that it was sending some kind of message to East Tide Monarch. East Tide Monarch wanted to say something, but he forcefully swallowed it back. Yi Qing Luo was warning him. If he spoke up for Hao Nanren again, probably Yi Qing Luo would not give him any face. She might even classify him and Hao Nanren as the same kind of people. East Tide Monarch personally paid a visit to seek help from Yi Qing Luo was naturally because of his utmost trust towards Yi Qing Luo's ability. As for Hao Nanren, he only had a bargaining chip which he could use to persuade Yi Qing Luo. East Tide Monarch naturally wouldn't take the risk of offending Yi Qing Luo to speak up for Hao Nanren. The East Wave's sovereign was no longer there to smooth things over. Kneeling on the ground, Hao Nanren's entire body trembled as his smile widened. Empress, this time, I really came with sincerity. This is the Green Dragon Pearl. With the reminder from the East Wave's sovereign, Lin Feng was no longer able to control himself. Hao Nanren quickly took out the Azure Dragon Pearl and held it above his head. This is the Azure Dragon Pearl that the Jade Dome sect has been guarding for generations. I present this Azure Dragon Pearl to Lady Emperor on behalf of the Jade Dome sect. Please accept it. However, in Hao Nanren's imagination, the scene of him taking out the Azure Dragon Pearl and Yi Qing Luo beaming with joy didn't appear at all. Just like that, he maintained the posture of holding the Azure Dragon Pearl up high for about the time it took for half an incense stick to burn. His hands were a little numb from holding them up. Hao Nanren was annoyed and embarrassed. Suppressing the unhappiness in his heart, he slowly raised his head and secretly looked at Yi Qing Luo. The girl was leaning lazily in Di Zun's arms. Her long and narrow eyes seemed to be outlining the most dazzling colors in the world. The expression on the girl's face was indifferent and lazy. She didn't even take a glance at the Azure Dragon Pearl in his hands from the corner of her eyes. He had been yearning for it, treating it as a family heirloom which could save his life. But in Yi Qing Luo's eyes, it seemed to be a piece of abandoned stone. Hao Nanren's heart, which was filled with hope, started to sink down bit by bit. Chapter 3240. The East Wave's sovereign, who had been standing to the side and had not dared to speak for a long time, was also taken aback. Didn't Imperial Madam want the Azure Dragon Pearl? Why? But now she was dismissive towards the Azure Dragon Pearl. Could it be that Imperial Madam didn't need the Azure Dragon Pearl anymore? East Wave's monarch was feeling apprehensive. His gaze couldn't help but look towards Gu Ming's direction, inquiring for the reason. The only way to convince Yi Qing Luo to help East Wave's continent was the Azure Dragon Pearl. If Yi Qing Luo had no interest in the Azure Dragon Pearl, then, what would happen to East Wave's continent? Gu Ming was also in a daze. The entire main hall was silent. No one dared to open their mouths to break this stalemate. They were afraid that if they opened their mouths, Yi Qing Luo would think that they wanted to help Hao Nanren. Everyone could see that. Yi Qing Luo didn't like Jade Dome sect's sovereign. Yi Qing Luo didn't like it. Which meant that the Overlord didn't like it. If the Overlord didn't like it, then it meant that the Imperial Palace didn't like it. Who dared to offend the Imperial Palace? Offend the Overlord? Hao Nanren maintained his kneeling position, and the action of raising the Azure Dragon Pearl had already made his arms sore and his entire body numb. His fat body was sweating profusely, soaking the ground he was kneeling on. Beads of sweat dripped down drop by drop. He had never suffered such grievance before. Towards Yi Qing Luo, Hao Nanren had always looked down on her from the bottom of his heart. His respect, his willingness to kneel down, was all because of the Overlord. But Yi Qing Luo was merely using her looks, relying on the fact that she had the backing of the Overlord, which was why she dared to be arrogant in front of him. Did Yi Qing Luo really think that defending South Wave's continent was her credit? The disdain in his heart. Under Yi Qing Luo's ridiculing gaze, it swiftly took root in his heart. He was extremely furious as the palm which was holding the azure dragon pearl clenched tightly. He straightened his body and raised his head. This extremely unyielding action looked extremely comical in Hao Nanren's eyes. He had knelt for too long, raised it for too long. His entire body was stiff and numb. In addition, his entire body was trembling like a ball of meat. If he suddenly straightened his body would not be able to withstand such pressure. His whole body went limp on the ground. The surroundings were filled with suppressed laughter. Angrily, Hao Nanren hammered the ground and glared around, trying to find out who was laughing at him. Even if he had to hold back his laughter. That was not allowed either. Ha ha ha! Suddenly, a burst of light and sweet-sounding laughter resounded in the air above the hall like silver bells. That laughter was like pearls falling onto a plate, extremely clear and melodious. I didn't expect the sect master of the Jade Dome sect to like sticking his face to the ground so much. The laughter continued, full of mockery. In that case, I'll be merciful and allow you to lie there before the banquet ends. These words. In the end, the soldiers sitting below could not help but laugh out loud. Even the well-trained servants who were serving him by the side laughed out loud. Hao Nanren's face was burning hot, and the suppressed anger in his heart gushed out in shame and embarrassment. He hammered the ground fiercely as he struggled to climb up from the ground and stared furiously at Yi Qing Luo. Are you kidding me? You never thought of helping the East Wave continent, you did it on purpose. He hissed angrily as the fats on his body kept on vibrating along with his emotions. Hao Nanren's eyes seemed as though it was spitting fire, as the fury scorched his heart. Yi Qing Luo, don't think that just because you have the support of the Overlord, you can do whatever you want. Suddenly, a deep voice rang. Chapter 32:41. Just as Hao Nanren finished his sentence, a voice suddenly rang out. Following that was a deep voice, Jade Dome sect master. That voice was low and deep, without any fluctuation of emotions. But it made the entire main hall quieten down. Everyone's breathing became careful, not daring to make any sound. Hao Nanren's anger was also poured into his heart by this voice. He stood there in a daze, as his pair of slits-like eyes kept widening. This lord's woman naturally has the right to do whatever she wants. The man's features were calm and expressionless. His gaze was deep as he looked at Hao Nanren indifferently. Does Jade Dome sect master have any objections? Saying that, his thin lips pursed slightly, as his deep gaze was cold and indifferent. Everyone felt that the air in the main hall was so cold that it made them shiver. This aura, which was like an endless abyss, pressed down on Hao Nanren. Hao Nanren only felt an uncontrollable fear rising from the depths of his soul. His legs turned into jelly as he slumped onto the ground without any face. Objections. What objections did he dare to have? He was only unresigned. His disheveled state had become a joke in everyone's eyes. However, that young lady who agitated him, who made him so angry that he lost his rationality, still had a radiant smile on her face, like a beautiful flower blooming. As though she felt that she hadn't sprinkled enough salt on Hao Nanren. Yi Qing Luo's petite body fell into Dmo Xian's arms as she opened her arms, hugging onto Dmo Xian's lean waist. Following that, she gave an evil smile. Amen, that's right, I'm just relying on my Xian's support to do whatever I want. What can you do to me? These were provocative words. It made Hao Nanren's eyes turn red. In Hao Nanren's eyes, Yi Qing Luo's daring act of throwing herself into his arms was called shameless. Yi Qing Luo seemed to see through his anger as she suddenly hooked onto Dmo Xian's neck and planted a kiss on his face. Following that, she looked at Hao Nanren with a smile. I like it when you're annoyed by me, but you can't do anything to me. Pfft. A mouthful of blood spurted out of Hao Nanren's mouth due to his anger. In the blood, there were pieces of red meat. That was their flesh and blood. Obviously, Hao Nanren was furious. Faction leader Hao, the East Water Continent is about to face a calamity. This is not the time for you to act on impulse. Don't forget the reason why you followed us to the South Tide Continent. The monarch of the East Tide saw that Hao Nanren was still stubbornly refusing to come to his senses. Hao Nanren put his hand on his chest and gasped for breath. His voice was weak and trembling. How did I act on impulse? She wanted the azure dragon pearl. I gave it to her, but she didn't want it. She wants to go back on her word. The Lord of the East Billow opened his mouth, but found himself unable to refute. The azure dragon pearl was indeed something that Yi Qing Luo disdained. This was the truth. But East Wave Monarch took a look at Yi Qing Luo and stood on Yi Qing Luo's side. Since you're here to ask for help, then you should have the attitude of asking for help. If I were you, I wouldn't want to cooperate with you either. Hao Nanren was so angry that his face turned green. Pucci, right at this moment, a chuckle broke the stalemate. East Wave Monarch and Hao Nanren's vision followed the laughter and looked towards Yi Qing Luo. Not knowing when, the young lady had already stood up from her seat. A blazing red robe made one dazzled. A pair of long and narrow eyes made one sink into it. That devastatingly beautiful face was matchless. Chapter 32-42. Under this enchanting elegance, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Who would have the mood to pay attention to Yi Qing Luo's alluring looks? Hao Nanren subconsciously took a step back as his eyes widened in terror. What are you trying to do? Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as her pair of fiery eyes fell onto him. The young lady's face was filled with ridicule and ridicule. Jade Dome Sect Master, you took a fake azure dragon pearl in front of me. Are you treating us Xian and me as fools? The young lady's voice was clear but her tone was filled with frost. Fake. Fake azure dragon pearl. These few words made East Wave Monarch's face turn pale instantly. Hao Nanren was also shocked as he forced himself to remain calm as he stared at Yi Qing Luo. What nonsense are you sprouting? This is my Jade Dome Sect's ancestral treasure azure dragon pearl, how could it be fake? Jade Dome Sect Master treats all of us as fools. Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly as her eyes were filled with ridicule. Hao Nanren took a few steps back in terror. I didn't. It's true. Throw him out. Yi Qing Luo calmly interrupted his rebuttal as her voice was cold. Hao Nanren's rebuttal stopped instantly. Stay here. If the Overlord wanted to stand up for his woman, he might not be able to leave South Wave Continent today. But if Yi Qing Luo asked someone to throw him out, at least he would be able to keep his life. Hao Nanren didn't even resist. He was directly carried up by the Imperial Palace's disciple who took orders from Yi Qing Luo and dragged him out of the main hall. Yi Qing Luo sat down once again. Her pair of curved eyes squinted as she stared at Hao Nanren's figure which was being carried out as her lips curled into an evil smile. She didn't kill Hao Nanren not because she was soft-hearted or because she was a saint or something. It was because she couldn't destroy the balance between the four continents in Nirvana realm. The rumors about the four great sects might not be fake. If the four great sects were really the guardians of the God Emperor's tomb, in that case, the chosen sect master would be the one chosen by the God Emperor. She killed Hao Nanren. If he couldn't find the next sect master of the Jade Dome sect who had the Divine Emperor's imprint, the balance of the Jade Dome sect would be destroyed. What would happen to the tomb of the Divine Emperor without a guard? All of this was unknown. Of course, it wasn't easy to let Hao Nanren go. They agreed to throw Hao Nanren out, that was, to really throw it out, even if Hao Nanren managed to keep his life. His reputation as the so-called sect master of the Jade Dome sect, it would also be completely destroyed. At this moment, the East Wave's sovereign watched as Hao Nanren was dragged out. His face was pale and his arms drooped to his sides. This was not because he was afraid that Yi Qing Luo would vent her anger on him. Instead, he was worried about the future of the East Wave continent. Yi Qing Luo's vision slowly fell onto the East Wave monarch. Sovereign of the East Wave. She opened her mouth and her voice was indifferent. East Wave's monarch slowly regained his senses as he looked at Yi Qing Luo. His lips moved, but in the end he lowered his eyelids. Di Furen. When are you preparing to set off? Yi Qing Luo continued to ask. Depart. The East Wave monarch still hadn't reacted in time. The young lady's clear voice rang once again. Based on the secluded Darkness Palace's temperament, after suffering a setback in the South Wave continent, I estimate that they will return to the East Wave continent within these few days. The East Wave monarch looked at Yi Qing Luo in a daze, not understanding the meaning behind her words. Looking at the dazed expression on the East Wave monarch, Yi Qing Luo laughed softly. So it's best that we set off tomorrow morning. Star. Chapter 32-43. Us. Set off. East Wave monarch's eyes were filled with bewilderment. He had always been intelligent, but at this moment, his mind was completely blank. Perhaps he had a vague guess in his heart. But he didn't dare to have that kind of hope. Because of that, his mind was in a daze. Yi Qing Luo stared at East Wave monarch's dazed eyes as she smiled. Right, us. Hearing Yi Qing Luo spitting out these three words clearly from her mouth. East Wave monarch's eyes lit up as he was overwhelmed with emotions. Madam, you mean. You're willing to head to East Wave continent with me, you're willing. To help East Wave continent to deal with secluded palace. As East Wave monarch asked, the palm which was pressed on his chest tightened. His stomach was filled with apprehension and anxiety. Emin, Yi Qing Luo smiled as she gave East Wave monarch his final affirmation. East Wave monarch's anxious expression suddenly relaxed. The rims of his eyes were almost red. The hand that was pressing on his chest had wrinkled the front of his shirt. He was touched and excited. He totally didn't care about his own status. And didn't care about who was around them. He faced Yi Qing Luo and knelt down heavily. Last time, East Wave monarch knelt down to Yi Qing Luo. That was in private. This was enough to make Yi Qing Luo moved. But today, East Wave monarch knelt down to express his gratitude in front of everyone. This made Yi Qing Luo even more determined to help East Wave continent. Sometimes, lowering one's head didn't mean one was weak. But for the things he protected, the people he protected, the sincerity he gave. To be able to make a country's monarch, in another foreign continent, in front of another continent's people, to sincerely kneel down to express his gratitude. It was enough to show how much this country's monarch valued his own continent, and how much he valued his own people. East Wave monarch, you don't have to be so courteous. Yi Qing Luo's sleeves fluttered as she supported East Tide monarch up. After this battle in South Tide continent, secluded Darkness Palace will definitely come up with corresponding countermeasures. Even if I agree to help East Tide continent, but that doesn't mean that I can really help you defend East Tide continent. The East Wave monarch smiled gratefully and shook his head. Your willingness to lend a hand is the greatest help to the East Wave continent. No matter what the outcome is, the Empress, the Emperor, the World Mercenary Group, will always be the people I will be grateful to. Yi Qing Luo smiled and changed the topic, but I have a small request. Just say the word, Lady Emperor. As long as it's within my power, I'll do anything for you. The East Wave sovereign said resolutely. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes squinted slightly as she gave an evil smile. I will support East Tide continent to the end, but I hope that East Tide continent will be able to do it. No matter if secluded Darkness Palace takes action against Jade Dome's sect or whatever, no one from East Tide continent is allowed to help. The East Wave Monarch was taken aback. This. I understand. One more thing, if the East Wave Monarch knows who Jade Dome sect's young sect master is, please secretly bring Jade Dome sect's young sect master to your side. Yi Qing Luo continued, if Hao Nanren dies, then it'll be troublesome. The East Wave Monarch will assist that young sect master to inherit the position of Jade Dome sect master. This request made the East Wave Monarch completely stunned. Yi Qing Luo didn't urge him to reply immediately. Chapter 32-44. Someone like Hao Nanren was like this. If he didn't die, he would definitely become an annoying fly. Furthermore, it was a very disgusting kind of fly. Therefore, while killing Hao Nanren, he would ensure that the next successor with the Jade Dome sect's Divine Emperor's mark would inherit the Jade Dome sect. The balance of the East continent was stabilized. I understand. East Billow Monarch remained silent for a moment before he finally cupped his fists and spoke to Yi Qing Luo solemnly, I will definitely fulfill the 2 requests that Imperial Madam has mentioned. Yi Qing Luo picked up a cup of wine on the table and raised it towards the East Waves Monarch as she smiled, East Waves Monarch, it's a pleasure working with you. In a daze, the East Waves Sovereign accepted the cup of wine handed to him by a maidservant beside him. It's a pleasure working with you. The atmosphere of a banquet was restored in the main hall. It was as if the scene that was disturbed by Hao Nanren just now had never happened. On the high seat, Guming secretly suppressed the chill on his back and heaved a sigh of relief. After Yi Qing Luo raised her request. Subconsciously, a picture emerged in Guming's mind. The smile on the young girl's face was cold, as if everything was under her control. I will wait for him to offer up the Azure Dragon Pearl with both hands and cry for me to save him. His entire body trembled. He believed it with all his heart. In the coming days, Hao Nanren would definitely offer up the Azure Dragon Pearl with both hands and cry for Madame D to save him. Fortunately, from the very beginning, he had chosen to believe in this girl who could bring miracles to everyone. This might be the legendary. A single thought, a single choice, would determine the true meaning of life. Gu Ming's heart was in turmoil. At this moment, the great general's heart was also very complicated. In his eyes, Yi Qing Luo was already a godlike existence. He still remembered in the morning when he asked Yi Qing Luo when she was planning to leave South Tide continent. Yi Qing Luo's smile was unfathomable and mysterious. She said, tomorrow at the latest. That very night, the East Wave Sovereign and Hao Nanren arrived. He finally understood the deep meaning behind Yi Qing Luo's smile at that time. In other words, Yi Qing Luo knew right from the start. The East Wave Sovereign would rush over to the South Wave continent and ask for her help again. From the very beginning, she had planned to help the East Wave continent. In Great General's mind, all the things that Yi Qing Luo had done in South Tide continent surfaced in this period of time. The more he thought about it, the Great General had become Yi Qing Luo's diehard fan. In the past, towards Yi Qing Luo, his respect and trust was more or less related to the Overlord. But now, he firmly believed. Even without Dizun, this girl was full of hope and miracles. He would definitely be able to defend the South Waves continent. The farewell banquet ended. Yi Qing Luo held on to Dmo Xian's arm as they brought their brothers back to the inn. Tomorrow, they would be leaving the South Tide continent. The brothers returned to their rooms to pack their things. Yi Qing Luo pulled Dmo Xian along as they headed towards a room at the corner of the second floor. This was Mo Yuying's room. In the battle 3 days ago, Mo Yuying was injured by Xiangxing Fa's dagger. Mo Ying's consciousness had been alternating between being awake and unconscious. Yiqing Luo took Mo Ying's pulse but was unable to find out the reason why Mo Ying had fallen into a coma. Even Mo Xian had no idea about Mo Ying's condition. However, after Mo Ying fainted, her expressionless face, which was like that of a soulless puppet, became a little more expressionless. Chapter 32-45. When Mo Ying regained consciousness, her once empty and soulless eyes now had color and light. Half blurry, half misty. Yiqing Luo indicated that in that state, when Mo Ying looked at her like a delicate doll, it made her young lady's heart melted. But under the situation where she didn't know what kind of injury Mo Ying had suffered, the Mo Ying who regained her senses, as though she had a soul. She didn't know if it was good or bad. Yiqing Luo could only decide to let the brothers in Devil class protect Shadow back to West Continent and let Master Ghost Doctor take a look at her condition. And also to inform West Continent about what happened in South Continent. To be prepared to deal with Secluded Palace. If it was possible, she could also bring some helpers from West Continent and rush over to East Continent. At this moment, Yiqing Luo threw Mo Xian at the door and walked into Mo Ying's room. Mo Ying was in a conscious state. On seeing Yiqing Luo, her pair of lively and adorable eyes sparkled, as though it was decorated with dazzling starlight. Qing Luo. That soft little voice called out her name gently. Yiqing Luo walked up quickly and sat by the bedside. Do you still feel pain from your wound? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Mo Ying closed her beautiful eyes. That extremely pale, bloodless face revealed a pitiful smile. Her voice was very soft as she opened her mouth. No pain, I'm much better now. But Yiqing Luo could tell from Mo Ying's expression. Mo Ying wasn't as much better as what she said. Yiqing Luo sighed as she helped her to tuck the blanket. You look so adorable, so you should have the self-awareness of a little loli. If you need to act coquettishly, then do so, there's no need to force yourself. I'm older than you. Mo Ying fixed her eyes on her, emphasizing every single word. Just this little face of yours, you'd better obediently be a little lowly and let me protect you. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers gently pinched her pale face. Her strength was extremely light, as though it was lightly brushing past her face. Mo Ying's thick and curly eyelashes, which were like those of a doll, trembled. A trace of complicated and indescribable colors also flashed through her starry eyes. Yiqing Luo seemed to have seen the change in Mo Ying's eyes. It was as if he did not see it. She only bent down, her movements gentle and slow, lightly covering Mo Ying's body, half hugging Mo Ying's shoulders. Yiqing Luo controlled her strength very well. It didn't make Mo Ying feel any weight. However, she was able to let Mo Ying clearly feel her warmth. Yiqing Luo gently hugged Mo Ying as her voice was gentle. Shadow, no matter what kind of life you had in the past, and no matter what your identity is, I have decided that you are my sister. In this life, you will always be my sister. No matter what you do, don't try to be brave by yourself. Remember, I'm behind you. Even she and Mo Xian were unable to find out the cause of Mo Ying's serious injury. As for Mo Ying, it was obvious that she didn't want to talk about this matter any further. Everyone had their own secrets that they were unwilling to expose to others. Just like how she, Yiqing Luo, wasn't someone from this world. It was as if there was another face concealed beneath Qiao Jin's seemingly ordinary face. Just like how Qiao Jin was a son from an aristocratic family in the upper three realms, but he hid his identity and stayed in Nirvana realm. Wait a minute, Mo Ying wasn't willing to say. Chapter 32-46. Qing Luo. Mo Ying's nose was filled with the fragrance of the young girl. That gentleness made her heart feel as if it was covered by some kind of warmth. It made her feel at ease. Mo Ying closed her beautiful eyes as she absorbed the warmth from Yiqing Luo. Her pale lips slowly rose into a slight arc. I'm fine. Next time we meet, I'll still be me. A soft voice floated into his ears. Yiqing Luo smiled lightly as her eyes curved. Why don't we make a bet? What? Mo Ying opened her eyes and her beautiful eyes brightened. Let's bet. Will I return to the West Continent to look for you first, or will you come to the East Continent to help me? Yiqing Luo beamed as she revealed the terms of the bet. Mo Ying was slightly startled and immediately smiled. Okay, I'll bet. Yiqing Luo touched the hair on her forehead. After the matters in East Continent are settled, I'll accompany you back to Godless Island. Mo Ying's smile froze. Her curly eyelashes drooped slightly. So, Yiqing Luo knew. Yiqing Luo had always known. That dagger came from Godless Island. She was the island sage of Godless Island, the Lord Island Sage who was above the island master. He had always been a highly respected existence. But, ever since she left Godless Island. However, the current island master of Godless Island had repeatedly tried to get rid of her, the island saint. He was even willing to cooperate with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. To be honest, she was the island sage of Godless Island. Many times, Godless Island had interfered in Gloomy Palace's schemes. This made her feel very uncomfortable. He also felt guilty towards Yiqing Luo and the others. But she did not know how to express it. Time and time again, he treated them twice as well. Qing Luo. Mo Ying opened her mouth, her voice was very soft. As for Godless Island, Dizun has already dealt with it, so there's no need to trouble yourself. Xian had already dealt with it. How could she not know? Last time, after the matter of Dao Yigon pretending to be Shi Shanglan ended, His Majesty went to Godless Island. Mo Ying explained, it doesn't matter. As for Godless Island, I will eventually return and take back everything that belongs to me. The soft little lowly voice said these incomparably firm words. However, it did not seem out of place at all. That sonorous and forceful tone made people believe that she could definitely do it. Yiqing Luo caressed her head, as you wish. This doting tone, this gentle little action. Mo Ying couldn't help but had an urge to pounce towards Yiqing Luo as she cried out, marry me. Marry me. However, Mo Ying raised her spirits and after chatting with Yiqing Luo for such a long time, her consciousness couldn't hold on any longer. Not long after, she was immersed in this peaceful feeling. He fell into a coma. Yiqing Luo sat by her bedside for a moment and scrutinized Mo Ying's expression before she got up to leave. Just as he closed the door to Mo Ying's room, Yiqing Luo's slender waist was locked tightly by a strong and powerful arm. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo struggled a little from the sudden hug and raised her head to look at him. He raised his head. The man's lips fell down fiercely. He used a lot of strength, which made Yiqing Luo couldn't help but moan. Her fingers clutched tightly onto Mo Xian's lapel as her delicate body leaned against the man's broad chest. Ah Xian. What's wrong? She could sense that Mo Xian's mood was very unhappy. It's been too long. Mo Xian frowned as he held her chin, although the shadow is a lady, but it's too close. Yiqing Luo. Chapter 32-47. Yiqing Luo stretched out her hand and pinched his face. Big vinegar jar, carry me back to the room. Mo Xian forced a smile from the young lady's fingers. But his face was still sullen. However, his actions were very sincere. Directly hugging Yi Qing Luo's waist into his arms, he turned around and headed towards their room. Yi Qing Luo's hand circled around his neck as her little head nestled into his chest. Shadow said, "You've already been to Godless Island and stirred up a wave of trouble there, right?" "And?" The man floated down from the top of her head. Yi Qing Luo raised her little head and stared at his clean chin. "Stirring up trouble without bringing me along." Dmo Xian's eyes drooped. In his eyes, the girl's beautiful face was reflected. The young lady's face was pretentiously sullen, but there was an unconcealable smile between her brows. That coquettish and overbearing look. A pair of long and narrow eyes stared straight at him. This made Dmo Xian Tong's eyes turn darker by a few degrees. Little Luo wants to stir up trouble. Dmo Xian suddenly opened his mouth. His deep and husky voice was full of magnetism under the tranquility. Yi Qing Luo's heart was on stir up trouble as her eyes lit up. Of course, how can I miss out on stirring up trouble? While they were talking, the two of them had already strode into the room. But Dmo Xian didn't let her go just like that. Instead he stood at the door, his shimmering peach blossom eyes stared at her. "So, now we're going to stir up trouble, do you want to go?" Yi Qing Luo's arms hooked around Dmo Xian's neck tighter. "Go go go." Dmo Xian's smile deepened. Under the candlelight in the room, that smile seemed to be plated with a layer of brilliance. It made his peerless face look like a god, noble and elegant. The handsome man trick made Yi Qing Luo totally not notice that under Dmo Xian's smile, there was a hidden emotion. Hence, Yi Qing Luo was led by Dmo Xian, and the two of them quietly left the room and sat on the carriage which was dragged by little Nine. The young lady nestled in the man's arms, excitedly grabbed Dmo Xian's collar and asked with a smile, "Ah Xian, where are we going to stir up trouble now? How big of a mess? Isn't it exciting?" "It's a secret." Dmo Xian whispered into her ear, "It will be so exciting that you won't be able to put it down." Yi Qing Luo, why do I feel like there's another meaning in his words? He had a strange feeling. Was it an illusion? By the time Yi Qing Luo reached the destination mentioned by Dmo Xian, she finally understood. It really wasn't an illusion. This place, it was the Imperial Palace. It was specially built by Dmo Xian for her, similar to a 21st century room. Causing trouble in her room in the Imperial Palace. Yi Qing Luo hadn't reacted in time. At this point, if she still didn't understand, then her reaction would be slow. She looked at the man in front of her who had a devilish smile on his face. Yi Qing Luo discreetly moved towards the direction of the window. He took a step forward. The man's long arms had already clasped her slender waist. The girl's delicate body fell into the man's broad embrace. That scorching heat also scorched Yi Qing Luo's body. "Didn't you say that as long as the time and place is fine, I can do whatever I want?" The man's deep and hoarse voice rang above her head. "Now, the time and place is just right. Lil Luo, you can't escape." Chapter 32-48. Dmo Xian accurately caught hold of her little fist that was about to strike him. His elegant brows were stained with a smile that made one sink into it. "Lie? What did I lie to you about? You said to bring me to stir up trouble. You cheated me back to the Imperial Palace." Yi Qing Luo struggled and cried out. She struggled. The man's other arm had already wrapped around her. Overbearing aura, strong force. It almost locked the young lady's petite body tightly in his arms. No matter how she struggled, she couldn't break free. The closer they got, Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel the heat from the man's body which kept rising. "I didn't lie to you, I am stirring up trouble with you." Dmo Xian's voice was hoarse, so clear that it made one unable to resist. You. You lying paper beast. Woo woo. Before she could finish her words, she was forcefully sealed by the man. Yiqing Luo originally had no immunity towards DMO Xian. Coupled with the man's deliberate release of seductive aura. Just a moment later, Yiqing Luo had already thrown away her armor. Stirring up trouble, opening the curtains. The next day, when Yiqing Luo opened her eyes, she had already returned to the inn in the South Continent. Yiqing Luo had just moved. Her entire body was sore, making her face flush red. She recalled last night angrily and annoyed. She gritted her teeth and couldn't help but spit out 2 words, beast. Obviously knowing that they were heading to the East Continent today, this beast still dragged her along to stir up trouble. He even used his honey trap. There was no room for her to resist at all. Yiqing Luo groaned as she climbed up from the bed, grabbing the clothes by the side. Her arm was sore, even the movement of lifting her hand was a little strenuous. Her fingers were just about to touch the red robe hanging by the side. Following that, she felt a light breeze brushing past. That red robe had already brushed past her fingertips, landing on a slender finger. That jade-like finger, the joints were distinct. Humph. When she saw that person, Yiqing Luo turned her little head, as a cold breath came out from her nose. The bed beside him sunk a little. The elegant sandalwood fragrance instantly enveloped Yiqing Luo entirely. The man's magnetic voice, full of laughter, came from beside her ear. I'll help you. I don't need your help. Yiqing Luo turned her head away, unwilling to look at her. The man scooped with his long arm. Her delicate body was in the man's arms. She was too lazy to struggle. Most importantly, her entire body was sore, and she couldn't struggle at all. The man helped her put on her clothes slowly and gently. Then, he gently and considerately tucked her hair into a simple and elegant style. His movements were very skillful, as if he had done this kind of thing often. Through the bronze mirror, although Yiqing Luo's face was stiff. However, her gaze was fixed on his slender fingers. Yiqing Luo was astonished by DMO Xian's proficient hair binding skills. Everyone knew. The mysterious and noble overlord. Even his own hair was done by the protectors or secret guards. How was it possible for him to pull up a woman's hair? So, DMO Xian wanted to tie up her hair. How long had he been practicing in secret? He was really a man who was so silly that he was cute. Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with rage. And because of DMO Xian's fawning actions, it completely disappeared. Just as Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and was about to open her mouth to forgive DMO Xian. Then, she felt her hair tighten. Something was stuck in her hair. Under the bronze mirror. That simple and elegant hair, the hairpin shone brilliantly. Just one look and Yiqing Luo fell in love with this hairpin. Star. Chapter 32-49. The silvery hair was like drops of water, flowing between the hairpin. At the end of the hairpin was a cherry blossom carved from transparent crystal, sparkling with brilliance. If one didn't look closely, one would feel that the cherry blossom was like a butterfly fluttering its wings. It was dazzling to the extreme. Yiqing Luo's pair of charming eyes were dazzled by the dazzling light of this hairpin. This is. Yiqing Luo slowly raised her hand. The red robe slid down to the elbow, revealing the fair jade-like roots. Her glossy fingers, which were coated with fluorescent light, gently touched the hairpin in her hair. Her fingers trembled lightly, touched it lightly. DMO Xian's big palm held her little hand. It led her trembling fingertips to touch the hanging cherry blossoms. The touch was slightly cool, but with a man's warmth. A gift. The man whispered in her ear, "Do you like it?" Yiqing Luo looked at the man's eyes through the bronze mirror. This is personally made by you. She could feel it. This hairpin had the man's presence and strength. Dmo Xian didn't say a word, but his arms tightened around her delicate body. His voice was gentle. Are you still angry? Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered. Her long and narrow eyes were stained with tears. He waited on her as she dressed. From him personally helping her to tie up her hair. From his extremely gentle, slightly fawning attitude. The fire in her heart had also dissipated completely. Not to mention at this time, after seeing the hairpin personally made by Dmo Xian. All that was left in her heart was full of gratitude. Actually, she wasn't angry. She grew up in the 21st century. The education and thinking she received was different from Nirvana realm. She wasn't very resistant to Dmo Xian's action of bringing her to create trouble. After all, Dmo Xian was a normal man. Kissing and hugging her every day. If she didn't have the idea of creating trouble, she would have doubted her own charm. But very unhappy. The one who created trouble and exhausted energy was obviously Dmo Xian. But the one who fainted, lying on the bed, was her. But, at this time, all the discomfort and exhaustion had vanished into thin air. Her heart was almost turned into a mess by Dmo Xian. Next time, I will be more careful and not let you be so tired. Dmo Xian saw that she didn't speak for a long time, and his thin lips moved closer to her exposed skin. Or, the next time, the right to stir up trouble will be handed over to you. Yiqing Luo, I was touched for nothing. This beast was already thinking of next time. Yiqing Luo's smile froze as her face sunk. Just as he was about to speak, the man's deep voice sounded again. Everyone is already waiting for us at the city gate. If we don't go out now, I'm afraid we'll have to wait until afternoon before we can set off. Yiqing Luo was expressing that this shameless beast could forget about deceiving her in the future. Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian walked together to the city gates. He accepted the gazes of the crowd. On the other hand, the soldiers and the disciples of the imperial palace stood straight and didn't look sideways. But Devil Class's group of bad friends all had wretched looks in their eyes, with a teasing smile hanging on their lips, using an extremely wretched look to wander between Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian. Yan Xiaoyi directly laughed out, "Jijage, you're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."